hear EU, Brexit. Why are countries part of EU? What is the benefit of being part of EU? And then let's talk about Brexit. Why are some countries wanting to be part of EU?
EU, this idea that you can join a group and you are better in than you are out. You're better as a group where you're combining your strengths as nations, that you work together so you have common security, common rules and regulations, common understanding, that idea, which sounds very noble, a common market and a common currency, the euro. But as a staunch Brexiteer, so I get called the female Farage quite a lot, which is annoying because he has really bad teeth. So on the 23rd of June 2016, we voted to leave. 17.4 million of us voted to leave. Really great people. So England and the United Kingdom is made up of two places. One place is called London. Londonistan, as I call it, for obvious reasons, as you'll have seen coming from the airport. And the rest of it is called the rest of the UK, where I live, where lovely people live, where regular Brits live, people that I really identify with.
Hello, everybody. We are back on the Valuetainment podcast. This is a bit of an oldie, but I think still perfectly relevant today. As you can see, Patrick Bet David is sporting a shaved head, and he's talking to Katie Hopkins, one of our favorites here on this channel. And this is about 5 years old, I think, but as I said, I think the points she's talking about are relevant to many issues. He's asking her about Brexit. What exactly is Brexit? What is the EU? Asking questions for his American audience. So let's just listen to what Katie has to say. I already liked, she made a funny point there, saying that the UK consists of two places, Londonistan, and the rest of the country. Yeah, so I'm sure Katie's going to give us some interesting sound bites here.
And for people in the rest of the UK, a lot of us voted leave. And what's been very traumatic is spending 2 years, which we're at now, still waiting, still not getting to actually leave. Brexit hasn't happened, and it looks increasingly like it won't. And that's a very challenging thing for many of us because it challenges our very belief in democracy itself and our social contract. But the question is, why did we want to belong? Why do some people want to belong? Some people, the people that live here in London that are doing very well, thank you, are, the elites, the establishment, the people that are very wealthy living in the biggest houses in the centre of London, old London.
Who are pro-staying with
EU?
They're
pro-staying because their lives are great, they're rich, they have lives that they don't want disturbed. If something's working, why change it? You get out into the periphery, the rest of the UK, where we are overwhelmed with migrants. You can't get an appointment for your dad at the doctor's because there's too many people on the wait list. You can't get your children into the school down the road because the wait list is overwhelmed. And you start to really feel like you want your country back. And that was the divide between London, the rest of the UK, and the people that I know.
So, but Katie, what is the benefit of being part of EU? So, I understand, it's 28 nations minus Britain, let's just say 27, whatever way they put the numbers. What is the real benefit of being part of EU?
I think the real benefit that people see is that they can have the fluid movement of people. They say it's a massive benefit to be able to move freely across the whole of the EU, that you don't need to have a visa, you can go and work there, you can live there, and we can benefit from migration into our country. They say that there is a net benefit to be gained from every migrant that comes to this country. Obviously,
there's a net benefit we get from every migrant that comes to this country.
That's what they say. And of course, I would say the opposite of that. And we end up stuck in this sort of place where you say one thing, I say the other, but neither side is listening nor changing each other's views.
Is it a method where the EU will say, hey, Croatia, you got to take these 100,000 refugees, and you have no choice?
Yes.
And if I'm Croatia, I don't have a choice.
No, you don't have a choice.
Benefit, you're part of EU. If we were a country, we are the third largest, most powerful military in the world combined if we're part of EU. But if you're part of EU, you have to do whatever we tell you to do.
So I'm Angela Merkel, although obviously I'm not, because I'm not ginger, I'm not autistic, and I couldn't kill both my parents in the night, still turn up in a pantsuit in Brussels at 7 a.m, which Merkel could do without any challenge whatsoever because she's crazy. But if I'm Merkel, I've taken 2.5 million migrants from God knows where, half of whom might be jihadis. I can now say to you, and you are Hungary, take these people. And you have to say yes, although luckily Hungary and Orban have said, no, we won't. So I love Hungary. I love Poland.
So that's the challenge. The challenge
That's
is
the challenge.
you're forced to make the choice.
You belong, so you get the military, you get the security, you get the shared airspace, shared understanding of this, you get the technological advantage, sharing in science, you get migrants, blah, blah, blah. But the disadvantage is you get told what you have to do, you have to pay your money, you have to pay in even though you might not receive it. And, for example, the French can fish in our waters, which my Cornish fishermen friends aren't particularly fond
You can
of.
only touch, 20% of it, right? What's the number that's out there on your own water? You can't go fish. That just makes...
Well, nice little summing up of how it works in the EU for those of you who live outside the EU. I live in the EU, in a Western European country, as yet unnamed. And yeah, it's pretty much like that. There's benefits to joining, obviously, but, when you make a deal with the devil, you got to give the devil his due. So you get something, especially for the poorer countries. The poorer countries that join basically join for the gibs, as they say. They join to get money from the EU to improve their infrastructure, improve everything. The EU funds a lot of projects in poorer countries with a view to increasing the standard of living, etc., etc. But it also has demands. It holds the purse strings, and it says if you want some of this sweet cash, you have to do what we say. And yeah, there have been a couple renegades, specifically Orban in Hungary. Poland was refusing, for example, to take certain migrants. I think that's changed recently. Also, Poland is clearly under attack by the sort of forces that have infested the United States, the evil forces that have infested the United States and Western Europe in general. And I mean, that's just what happens when you suck up to the American empire. So Poland is starting to go down the trans ideology route, the gay priest route, and all that. It's behind, it's behind schedule, as so to speak, compared to countries like the U.S. and Western Europe, but it has already started down that path. As far as I know, Hungary hasn't. And the EU has been fining it millions of dollars a day for refusing, I think, to take its latest quota of refugees. Anyway, she sort of laid it out there. Let's listen to a bit more and see if there's anything interesting.
And Macron just came out and said, we are still going to fish in your waters when you leave. So
we are still going to fish in your waters when you leave.
And Spain just came out and said, and we expect to take some sovereignty back on Gibraltar.
Well, let me ask you this. What's the worst thing that can happen if Brexit does actually become a reality? What is the worst thing that can happen in Europe?
The worst thing that can happen, I see no bad thing that can happen. The only thing that could happen to me is it encourages a whole bunch of other people to leave, which is precisely why they don't want us to leave. And I think the great thing, the media keep using the narrative, we crash out of the EU, we crash out with no deal. We don't crash anywhere. No airplanes are going to come falling from the sky. We will politely leave in a very British way, apologise when someone else stands on our foot, and we just walk out the door. That's what no deal means. We don't even have to pay to leave.
So 5 years on, yeah, the Brexit was very poorly handled by UK government, very poorly negotiated, poorly handled, and a lot of things have gone wrong. And I mean, I don't keep up with it, but it sounds like it's been, it's just been poorly handled. So because when you leave an organization like that, I think Britain joined in the early 70s, joined the EU, or what was then called the Common Market, in 74 or something like that. So it was part of it for quite a long time, and it didn't really want to join. It was always under duress. I remember Margaret Thatcher was always half in, half out. I think she organized some sort of opt-out on a big issue. I can't remember what now. Maybe it was on the single currency. I can't remember. But yeah, the UK never really wanted to be in it. They never should have joined in the first place. It was like getting married and you don't really want to get married. It's going to end poorly, basically. You just shouldn't have got married because the divorce is going to be messy. And it was very messy. Has been messy. So it could have been handled a lot better. But what's done is done. I agree with Katie Hopkins. I would personally be quite happy to see the EU fall apart. Or reduce back to what it originally was when it was set up after the war in the early 50s, I guess. It was strictly the idea behind it was to have a common market for industry. So for various countries, the original 6 signatory countries, for example, could do business amongst each other more easily. And it was to promote trade between these countries in an effort to ensure peace. And the idea being that, it's just after the Second World War, which was a Holocaust for Europe, absolute catastrophe, which itself followed not long after the First World War. So there had been a lot of war. People were very tired of it. It's chaotic. It's awful. So many people died. Just millions and millions and millions of all sorts of people left the place. Complete shambles, ruin. Took years to get out of it. So I can understand why they wanted to do anything possible to promote peace. Excuse me. But of course, that original idea of promoting trade and having a trading bloc, as these things always do, it morphed and metastasized into what it is today. Just like the federal government in the United States, which was meant by definition to be small and have very few powers, itself has, over a much longer time, morphed and metastasized into a behemoth, a sickening behemoth that has become overbearing, overarching, and just it needs to be cut down, like dramatically. It needs to be pruned back so badly. So I feel much the same way about the EU. It has its good things, I'm not saying everything it does is bad, of course, but in the overall scheme of things, I think it's better not to belong to this kind of supranational organization of countries or states, because this kind of thing will happen. It will just become too overbearing at some point. Let me know what you think if you have any comments or questions about life in the EU, if you're outside the EU, or if you're in the EU like I am, let me know. I'd be glad to hear from you. And in the meantime, please like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. It really helps me grow the channel and continue making more content for you.